Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about where's the market and where it might be heading. Hi, my name is Brian Schrader. I'm with the Coastline NC Real Estate Team at BlueCoast Realty Corporation down here in southeastern North Carolina. Today, May 29th, so we're going to take a look at the market. We're going to take a look at the market in our Tri-County area, which is Pender County, New Hanover County, and also Brunswick County. We'll break down the market in a couple of towns that are popular and also a couple of larger scale neighborhoods here in our area. So enough of that, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these figures for this year. So again, it's May 29th, 2025. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so breaking it down here, we're going to talk about some key factors in the marketplace. You can see here this chart, it goes back to all the way to 2022. Basically, this is a 3-year chart of different variables. This chart here, this is the Tri-County area of Pender County, New Hanover, and Brunswick County. And as you can see here, the average sale price has slowly kind of creeped up to that 525 range. This includes all of the properties. We're talking condos, single-family homes, manufactured homes, townhomes, the whole 9 yards. So this is kind of where we're at in the Tri-County area. As far as months of housing supply, you're looking at definitely this housing supply has crept up a little bit from the past year. So we're sitting at around 4.4 months of housing supply. If you look at the chart, the number of closed sales has trickled down over the years and kind of hit this bottom trough area, as you can see here in 2024. So we're going to take a look at that. And usually these graphs lag a little bit, like probably about 6 months. The percentage of what people are getting from list price here, you can see here that this graph here shows the average percentage of what people are getting at list price. You can look back here when the market was really crazy back in 2022, over asking 100%, and you can see how it slowly kind of trickled down into most people in our Tri-County area are getting around 98% of asking. So that is on the macro, with the 3 different counties that we talked about. Days on market here, you'll also see, they've gone from, a very hyper fast market, 6 days on market, and now we're sitting at around 30 days average through the Tri-County area. Okay, and we're going to break it down to New Hanover County. You can see this is the average sales price. It's kind of trending that line, a little bit more expensive in New Hanover County versus some of the other counties such as Pender and Brunswick County. But months of housing supply, here you can see that that's creeped up to about 3.3 percentage of list price, what people are getting in Hanover County. Again, kind of following that same trend line as the macro in the 3-county area. Back in August of 2022 is around over asking, and now we're kind of rolling around that 98% of asking. As far as list price goes. Days on market, we've creeped up a little bit. We've gone to 6 days on market up to 22, which is still pretty fast. Usually a normal market's probably got about 3 months of housing supply. So we'll take a look at that number here. You'll see that we're sitting around 3.3 months of housing supply, but you also have to take in consideration that closed sales have hit a trough here. So we've gone from back in January of 2022, we had 6,328 closed sales, and now we've been hovering, in the upper 3,000s here over the past 6 months, and that line is about to take a turn, in my opinion. So days on market definitely have creeped up. So price per square foot is kind of relatively starting to flatten off a little bit at that 250 range. So we're starting to see that kind of bend out, but that's New Hanover County. And if you look at, we'll take a look here at some of the other figures, such as new construction. You can see that the amount of new construction in this area has kind of trickled down as far as the amount of new listings. That's due to most of the counties pretty much built up on. So you don't have a whole lot of new construction versus like Brunswick County, which we'll get to here in a second. It's going to have a lot more of those new home communities that are popping up all over the place. Okay, let's take a look at Brunswick County to the south. You'll see that the average sales price peaked out in June 2023, and you can see that the prices have started to trickle down a little bit here in the area. Now, this is, you get two different markets here. There's a lot of new construction, and there's also a lot of resale properties and a lot of different communities in Brunswick County. So we're going to break it down. So this is the average sales price on everything. But if you kind of look at new construction, here's a snapshot of that. You can see how new construction is definitely trickling down as well. Also, the new construction home prices, it's kind of skewed because a lot of these new neighborhoods offer a lot of incentives, especially on the financing sides. A lot of these new home builders like Lennar, D.R. Horton, Ryan Homes, they also have their own banks, so they're offering heavy incentives, and that kind of messes with the price. That's why you don't see a huge decrease in prices, because they have a lot of those incentives out on the marketplace. So if you look at previously owned prices, kind of bounce around. It's kind of going sideways there. So you can see the difference between the two graphs is that there's more pressure, in my opinion, on the new home construction in Brunswick County and less on existing home sales. So let's go back to everything in the county, and we'll talk about the months of housing supply. You can see here in this graph here, going back 3 years ago, 1.6, not a whole lot of housing supply, but now we've kind of creeped up to 6.6. And again, a lot of that has accrued due to the amount of new home construction neighborhoods that we have in Brunswick County. So days on market here, you can see with that line, that trend line is trending upward. We're up at around 42 days on market. And again, that number, you kind of have to break it down because there's a lot of new home construction. A lot of times they sell those houses before they're built. So you might see a house on the market 120 days or 320 days. That's due to when they actually put it in MLS to market the property. House sometimes usually is not built. So you kind of have to break that down and peel back the layers of the onion there. But you can see a percentage of list price that they're getting, again, 90, 100%, let's say back in 3 years ago. And now we're kind of riding around that 98% here in Brunswick County. And next we're going to break it down some of these cities. So this is the chart of, this is Leland. It's another popular town, just sits 15 minutes west of downtown Wilmington. So we're going to see here, you're looking at all construction types. The average price point is kind of leveling off in Leland, averages around 424. Months of housing supply there is creeped up from 22 levels to we got around 3 months of housing supply. The percentage of what sellers are getting to list price here has definitely trickled down to like over asking 3 years ago to now we're sitting around 98%. So it's still a pretty strong market, but you can see the trend lines here definitely kind of slowed down a little bit. Again, through this time frame, you have to also realize that interest rates have really gone up as well. Days on market in Leland, crunching the numbers here, have gone from 6 days on market to we're sitting around 40 days on market. And then we'll take a look at the new construction here in Leland has definitely average price of kind of new construction homes have kind of trickled down a little bit in this area. And then new listings of new construction have definitely kind of slowed up a little bit in the Leland area as well. Next town we're going to talk about is the town of Bolivia. So you can see here, this graph here is the average sales price going back 3 years. You can see peaking out around 2022 December, and it's slowly kind of trickling downward a little bit in the town of Bolivia. The months of housing supply is going up there. You can see we're sitting around 5.5 months of housing supply. The percentage of list price of what people are getting here, you can see where the it kind of dipped down into like that 98%, but it's creeped back up, which is kind of bucking the trends of a lot of the other towns out there. But I think if you switch gears and you look at previously owned properties versus some of the new construction. So here's a chart of the previously owned properties, and you can see that they're getting dipped down into like 96% of asking and bumped back up to 98, and now we're sitting around 97% of asking. So that is all the resale properties. But if you switch over to new construction, there's where you get that spike, and that's due to the hefty incentives on all these new home construction communities. So you're really not seeing a reflection of price. But I bet you if there was a chart of incentives, it would and rate buy downs, you would definitely see a different graph here. So that is the town of Bolivia. Let me just go back out here to the all construction types. But you'll see that the days on market here has kind of leveled out to around 50 days on market. Next town we're going to talk about is Hampstead to the north. It's in Pender County. But this chart shows the average price point. It looks like in the Hampstead area, prices are still gradually going up in that area. The months of housing supply in Hampstead has definitely gone up a little bit. It sits around at that 3.8 months of housing supply. And what people are getting as far as percentage of list price, and that area peaked out around about 3 years ago over asking, and then most people are getting around 98% of asking roughly to list price. So days on market there, correlation with the supply is going up a little bit. Days on market has definitely gone up to about 30 days, which isn't really too terrible, but it's definitely, that's the median. The average is around 58 days on market. So it's still a good market up there in Hampstead, but we'll take a look here. Let's take a look at some of the new construction properties out there as far as, let's get back to price point. Average price point on new construction in Hampstead looks to be pretty strong, sitting at that $537 price point. And then the months of housing supply for new construction, they have around 5.2 months of housing supply, and then the percentage of list price to ask sits around 100%. So again, some of those new home communities, they have a lot of incentives on the financing, so you don't really see a reflection in decrease in price, but you see that it sits at around 100%. Okay, now we're going to talk about some of the popular larger communities. I've had a couple folks ask about a couple of these ones that have, amenities, golf courses and whatnot. But this one we're going to talk about, this one is St. James. It is down in Southport. So you can see here where the average price point of homes in St. James have definitely gone up over the past 3 years. It looks like in the past couple, 6 months to a year, it's kind of balancing out a little bit. But the percentage of list price to what people are getting, that number is going from 100% down to around, let's call it 97% of asking. So there's a little bit more flexibility in some of the properties down there compared to the past 3 years. The days on market here definitely going up as well. And the price per square foot in St. James kind of plateauing off a little bit. It sits right around that $255 per square foot. But again, this is St. James. The number of new listings, as you can see here, we used to have a lot of new listings in that community over the past 3 years. And now the supply really hasn't caught up a whole lot. So this is the bottom here. We're definitely taking a turn. So we're going to see here. We'll monitor St. James and see kind of how it reacts to the marketplace over the next couple months. Next community that we're going to talk about is Brunswick Forest. I get a lot of questions on this community. Again, this one is located in Leland, just outside of downtown Wilmington. And we're going to see here, this chart represents past 3 years. You can see where the average price point, it's kind of hit not a plateau, it's going sideways. Starting back August of 2022. And looks like, we're sitting around 540. There's still some new construction going on at Brunswick Forest. But in this community, months of housing supply, you can see where that's also kind of creeped up a little bit. And again, they are still building new in there, so that helps out with the supply as well. But the percentage of what people are getting to list price, looks like it was peaked out in the June of 2022 and at around 100%. And looks like people are getting around 98% of asking. So it's still pretty strong market in Brunswick Forest. Days on market are sitting around average around 60 days in that community. So this is kind of a snapshot. You got some of the macro area, the Tri-County area, some of the towns, and some of the different master plan communities. I can definitely do others. So if you have a specific community that you want an analysis on, or if you have a property that you're thinking about selling and you want to get like a more detailed report, we do those as well. Because again, every property is unique and you have to look at all the characteristics, the upgrades, and the location and whatnot. But feel free to give me a call if you have any questions about any of this information. Again, this is the May 2025 market update for the Tri-County area, Pender County, New Hanover, and Brunswick County. Again, it's Brian Schrader with the Coastline NC Real Estate Team. We hope this has been beneficial. Call us if you guys have questions. Take care now.